This is an oral history interview conducted for the Witness to War, Serving a Nation project at Nauset Regional High School on Cape Cod, Massachusetts. For the sake of this interview, please state your full name and community in which you now reside.
My name is Channon William Ellery Sherman, and I reside in New Bedford, Massachusetts.
Okay. So, where did you live growing up?
I grew up in New Bedford and Fairhaven. I lived in Fairhaven for about 12 years, mainly New Bedford though.
What was it like growing up there?
It was nice. Fairhaven's a small community, so I had a lot of close friends. Moved when I was in like 7th grade to New Bedford, and that's when I started going to New Bedford schools.
What led you to join the military?
Well, there's a lot of military in my family. Both my grandfathers served in World War II. A couple of my great uncles were in Korea. All of my uncles were in Vietnam. So I just kind of felt like it was my turn to do my part.
When you were younger, did you always think you were going to join the military?
Yes.
What did you miss most while you were overseas?
Food. It was, we all had a list of like food that we wanted to have when we came back home. So that was like the big thing.
If in the future a grandson or niece or nephew or someone told you they thought about joining the military, what advice would you give them?
Pick a smart job. So when I joined, I went as infantry, so just a basic foot soldier, which I enjoyed it, but when you get off active duty, there's not much that it transfers to.
Okay. So, what was the day-to-day life like overseas?
It depends. Like I said, my first 2 deployments were, I was infantry, so I went to Iraq and Afghanistan. Iraq was 14 months, Afghanistan was 12. It really depended. There was a lot of different duties. Sometimes we just do what we called presence patrols, just to let everybody know that we're out there and we were, checking up to make sure that everything was safe. Sometimes you just have guard duty where you just sit in a tower for 6 or 12 hours and just keep an eye out for any enemy activity, stuff like that. So it really varied day to day.
What was your family's reaction when you told them you wanted to join the military?
My mother was a little shocked. My father, I think he had an idea that it was coming. So, but overall, they were all very supportive. My sister was already in the military, so.
Do you have any other siblings that were in the military aside from your sister?
A few cousins. Like I said, most of the older generations were all in the military.
What was your position during combat?
That varied. I did a lot. So my first deployment, I started off as a machine gunner, and then I was a grenadier. We had the grenade launcher that was attached to our rifle. I was what they call a radio telephone operator for my platoon leader. Those were my early years at my first deployment. My second deployment, I was a team leader and a squad leader. So I led at first four team members and then 8 later on.
If you could change anything you did in the war, what would it be and why?
Oh man. That's a tough one. It's kind of hard to look back and say, what would I do different? Because when stuff happens, you just kind of go with the flow. Your training really does kick in and you just react. You don't really think at that point. I guess I could have gotten better shape. I was never the fastest or the strongest, but I was always sufficient enough to do my job, I guess you could say.
What was training like for the military?
I'm sorry?
What was training like for the military?
Fun. It was a lot of fun. I love outdoors, hiking and all that stuff. So to just be outside all day getting yelled at and running around, it was very enjoyable.
How did you feel during your first days, on the field?
Deployment or training?
Either.
I guess they're both the same. It was, nervous because you're not sure what to expect. And then once you kind of get into a routine and you see how everything's going to be, it's not so bad.
What was one moment you were most proud of?
Most proud of? Well, going back to my my very early years, I actually joined as a Special Forces recruit. It was a thing that they had going because they had a shortage of Special Forces soldiers. And so we did very rigorous training for the first about 7 months. And so the end of this month-long course, which was just hell. It was terrible. Very little sleep. They all night long doing land navigation, like through the woods with, you can't use flashlights. And, it's completely black and it's just terrible. So this whole month of just terrible. And so you get to the end and they've got a formation of soldiers in front of them. They got about 300 people out there. So they start calling off all these names. And so you're thinking that these are the people that are being selected to go to the next level. And so they finished and there was probably about 70 of us left in the small formation. And they're like, you guys are the ones that made it, the ones that they didn't call. So at that point it was, that was my dream, to be Special Forces. So I was like, that was a big step. So I was pretty proud that I had made it to the next level.
Could you walk us through like what it looked like on the field, like where you were?
Well, it's I'll go deployments. My first deployment to Iraq was not what people think when you think of Iraq. Stationed right on the Euphrates River, so they build a lot of canals off the river for their crops. They have a lot of date trees and such. So it was more like a jungle than a desert. So it was very unique. We would driving from our main base to our smaller base. You would be driving through the desert, and the next thing you know, it looks like you're in Vietnam. Like, whoa, I wasn't expecting this. And then for Afghanistan, I was in the very far northeast, right on the Pakistan border, and it was the mountain range called the Hindu Kush. It's the same mountain range that Mount Everest is in, and it's just, when you imagine mountains, that's all it is. It's actually really, really beautiful. When you hike up this giant hill and you get up there and you look down, they got the valley with all the fields and stuff. It's nice, but overall, very, very different terrains.
Do you think you would ever go back to either Iraq or Afghanistan?
I would. I'm still in the reserves now, and they had asked last year for someone to deploy, but they were going to Kuwait. Kuwait is not a great place to be. So if they had said Afghanistan, I probably would have went. I know Iraq's winding down now. There's not a lot of troops there, so not likely that I'd go back there, but I would definitely go back to Afghanistan.
What was your best memory of being in the force?
Best memory. My parents at my graduation. That was pretty special.
What made it special?
For infantry, we have we wear a blue cord that signifies that you're infantry, and so part of the ceremony is your father comes over and he pins it on you and stuff. So it was just touching, I guess. Something I'll never forget.
What do you think your darkest memory would be?
Been in some pretty tight spots, being infantry. We had a 2-week stretch where the Taliban had come in and they had taken the voter registration cards right before the 2009 elections in Afghanistan. And so just a very remote place. We had to fly in with helicopter. Our trucks were too big to get there. And so we flew in and we were there for 2 weeks. And when you see war movies, it's, usually they bring it up to make it a little exciting, but it was very similar to that. We saw action pretty much every day for the 2 weeks we were there. So in 2 weeks we lost 2 soldiers in my platoon. So it was a tough time.
Can you explain what you mean by action?
So we could only fly in when it was dark. So we flew in that night. We had about 4 hours of sleep. We had a small base already. The base is, we had a house that we were staying in, and we had a little perimeter set up. So within 4 hours of landing, we were taking small arms fire, RPGs, mortars. So the way that village was set up, it was actually at an intersection of two valleys. So you have a valley going this way, a valley coming in this way. So you had four hilltops. And so we were down in the village in the center. And so the enemy had the high ground. So we pretty consistently got shot at. That first firefight, they actually hit the Afghan National Army had an ammo supply point set up in a hotel. It was just the biggest house in the area, and it got hit with RPG and caught on fire. So everything, all the ammunition that they had in there was going off because it was burning. So, and pretty consistently every day or night we saw small arms fire, RPG fire. We actually we got ambushed. They had cornfields, so we use infrared. You can see enemies. You see the videos online. You see the enemies at night and such. But they had a lot of cornfields in the area, so you couldn't see when they were coming in and out of the valley. And we actually got caught in a near ambush, which is 35 meters or more, 35 meters or less. And so there was, I think, 47 enemy fighters out there. We didn't have air support at that time, so it was basically 30 of us against 40 of them. It was pretty intense. We were stuck in this little courtyard, like stone walls. We were stuck there for about 45 minutes before we could get out.
Did you make any connections when you were in the war with other people?
Yes. I'm not infantry anymore now. I'm actually transportation, and you still have that camaraderie, but when you're infantry, you're a very tight-knit community, and you have around 36 people who, you live in the same barracks together, and you train every day together, and you deploy together. So you're very, very close. I still keep in touch with people from my first deployment back in 2006. I still have good friends down in North Carolina that I actually drive down to go see every once in a while.
Okay. How does the war still affect you today?
Well, the memories are always still there. Sometimes the summer seasons they call it the fighting season, because especially in Afghanistan, once the mountain passes, they get snowed over and they can't bring in weapons and ammo. So the fighting slows down in the wintertime. So in the summertime, sometimes you start to think, 4th of July and Memorial Day, you start to think about all the people that you lost.
How long did you serve in the military for?
March 30th makes 12 years.
Okay. What do you think of when you hear the words Iraq and Afghanistan?
Oddly, friendship. Said I made a lot of good close friends while you're there. So.
How different was Iraq and Afghanistan compared to the United States?
Well, for lack of better words, infrastructure. We have so many amenities here that when you go over there, you're just kind of in shock. They really are third world countries. Iraq is poorly ran for infrastructure-wise. So when you get into nighttime, you start having rolling brownouts when people have too many lights on and stuff like that. In Afghanistan, it looks like it's the 15th century. You could take all the cars away and everything would still run exactly the same way.
How did you contact your family when you were in the service, and did you talk to them much?
Yeah, we had what's called MWRs, morale, welfare, and recreations. They had like tents set up where they'd had telephones and we'd have internet. And in my last deployment, when I went back to Iraq in 2011, I was in a little building. I was doing transportation then. It was a lot nicer setup. We actually had Wi-Fi, so it was a lot easier to Skype and such.
Were you ever injured, and how?
No, I was very lucky. I had some close calls. When I got in that close ambush, the platoon leader was like, "We need suppressive fire to the south." So I ran up to the stone wall because I had a grenade launcher. So the first thing I always did when we saw contact, I shot it. So I ran up to the stone wall and I shot, and there was an enemy machine gunner not too far on the other side of the wall, and he actually sprayed the wall right in front of me. So I just kind of fell back and I was just kind of there in shock for a second. Everybody's like, "You all right?" I'm okay.
What was life like outside of where you were staying?
Again, like kind of like everything else, you're nervous at first, because they prep you when you're in Kuwait. You always go and you stay for a little bit before you deploy, and you do training. You do IED training and improvised explosive device training and such. And so, you think every car that drives by you is a vehicle-borne IED. And then after a while you start to count down and you're like, okay, no, there's a lot of nice people in those countries. It's a very small faction. So I've actually made friends with local nationals. Hey, sorry. Yeah, I made a lot of friends there, even local nationals. So at first it's just getting used to the environment and the people that are there. And then once you do that, it becomes a lot more normal, I guess you would say.
Was there anyone really close to you that you lost?
Yes, I had a few friends that overall that I know of so far. I've lost 12 friends. So sometimes it's hard because you meet so many people that you can't really keep track of everybody. So sometimes you don't find out until years later. That close ambush, we lost somebody that day.
When was the last time you saw someone who was in combat with you?
It's been a while. I think last time I went down to North Carolina, I think was 2013. He was my platoon sergeant in Afghanistan. So 3 years or so.
What do you like most about living in Massachusetts?
Get a little bit of everything. You got the ocean. We like to go camping in like the Berkshires. It's only a couple hours drive, so you get everything you need really, really close. And the seafood's great.
How did you and your family feel when you finally returned home?
I guess I was happy, of course, to be back. You come on leave, so you do visit. So it was nice to come home. I do miss active duty. It's a completely different lifestyle. So, but it's nice to be set up here. I know a lot of my family was probably relieved that I was home. They're hoping I'm not deploying again anytime soon.
If you could go back in time, would you do it again, and why?
I would definitely do it again. It definitely helped develop me as a person. I was a punk in high school. I don't know, I think most people probably are. So I was doing all right. I had gotten a license to operate boilers, same thing I do now. And so financially I would have been fine, but I don't think I would have been as morally strong as I am now.
What kind of education did you have before you went to the military?
Just high school. I went to a vocational high school, so I learned a trade, and I had thought about doing college. But I decided that I wanted to do that first, and I knew if I waited to go in, the likelihood of me actually leaving would have been a lot less. So I figured just strike while the iron's hot. I wanted to go, so I just went.
Would you recommend to anyone else to join, and why?
Yes, I would definitely. Regardless of what branch it is, it's a very unique feeling being part of a team like that. It's very close. You make the best friends you ever have. You're gonna make while you're in the military, and there's so many opportunities to learn a good profession while you're in the military. So a lot of people talk about service to your country, and it is important, but at the same time, they offer so many benefits and amenities that you should, like right now, I'm taking advantage of our military benefits to go to college. I actually just started taking classes, so I have, free tuition and such. So it's a good opportunity overall to really grow yourself as a person.
What do you mean by classes?
I just started taking, last semester I took basically like Math 100 pre-algebra. I hadn't done algebra in like 12 years, so it was a little rough when I first started. So right now I'm taking English 101 this semester and college algebra, pre-calculus. So, which I'm very happy that those were going to be over soon.
What were the meals like?
Meals? Sometimes they were good, sometimes they were iffy. Usually you could always find something that you liked. They used to have midnight chow, which was pretty awesome. They'd have like leftovers from dinner and they'd cook breakfast at the same time. So that was pretty good. But I mean, Iraq, we were on bigger bases for the most part, so they had a lot of, I guess you could say, nicer food. And then in Afghanistan, I was on a very, very small base, and we only had 2 cooks supplied to support the company of about 150 people. So the meals were a little less extravagant, and supply was kind of tough sometimes.
When you weren't at your base, if you were in a situation where like you couldn't get a meal made for you, what would you do?
We would have MREs, meals ready to eat, a little brown package. Typically in Afghanistan, we did a lot of multiple day missions where we would just pack our bags full of food, water, ammunition, and clothes, and just take off for 3, 4, 5 days. And so you're basically living on the hillside off of, MREs. Sometimes the villagers would bring food out if we were, just hanging out for a little while. Or when we had, they call them key leader engagements, KLEs, and you'd meet with the local police force. They would always do either a lunch or a dinner. So the important people would go inside and hang out with the other important people, and then all the soldiers would kick around in the kitchen with the cooks and eat before they got their food.
How did the locals react to the fighting that was going on?
Differently. Some of them, I think, were sympathetic to the people who we were fighting, and then at the same time, there were a lot of people who supported us. They would tell us if there were IEDs in the area, stuff like that. They would let us know if an attack was happening, or if someone was planning an attack and they heard about it. So they were divided, but I think overall the majority supported us because they knew we weren't there we weren't trying to colonize them or take their land. We were just there to help them.
What were the living conditions like?
Varied, very a lot. So Afghanistan, on the main base we had what was called a chew, and it was a 20-foot container that had 2 beds in it and some lockers, air conditioning. Then we would go out to our patrol base where we mainly operated out of, and they had 20-foot containers with just plywood beds and then no mattresses, and so we'd sleep out there for a while. Afghanistan, I shared a room about the size of my living room, maybe like 12 by 12, and there was 8 of us in there, so tight quarters. So.
What were they like when you weren't at a base? Like, what would you do?
Sometimes we'd just go out on missions and we would just stay in our trucks for a couple of days. We would just go around, visit village to village. Some of them are pretty far out there, so we would just kind of take it in small bounds, and we would set up what's called a vehicle patrol base, and basically set up a perimeter with your vehicles, and you would just sleep inside your truck. Like I said, sometimes we'd go out on missions and we would just hike for days, and you would just find a nice comfy spot on the ground and nap for a few hours and then go back at it.
How does the war still affect you today?
Well, I don't think it does too much. You think about past events now and again, but overall, it doesn't really bother me. I feel like I did everything the best that I could, so there's nothing that I feel like I really could have changed.
Could you describe a normal day in combat?
A normal day in combat? Typically there is no normal day. Sometimes, just like any other job, or even living here, some days are really exciting and it's just non-stop, just busy, and then we have days off too, where sometimes we'll go out for a 5-day mission and then we come back and we won't go out for 3 days. So you just sit around and eat and binge watch some TV show that you got into, hang out. We used to play cards and stuff with a small group of people.
Mm-hmm. So, if someone asked you for advice to do when they were in combat, what would you give them?
Everybody's little cliche. It's like I'm trying to kick it out of my head. Is keep your head down, because that's really not good advice. It's just be vigilant. We have a saying: complacency kills. Once you're there for a while, you really do get set in your routines, and you have to kind of force yourself to say, hey, I am. You go a few weeks and nothing happens. There's no firefights. You don't get shot at, and there's no IEDs, and you really just start to get complacent, and you stop looking for the key signs that tell you that something's going to happen. So just always be vigilant.
What are you doing for work currently?
Right now, I work at a power plant. I operate the pollution control equipment.
Okay. Has your experience in the war affected your view of the world now?
I think it broadened it. Not so much the combat, I guess, in a way, but overall, to see how people live in other countries. It's, in a way, it's sad that Iraq women are still treated very poorly. It's not like America. It makes you more grateful of what you have here, and at the same time, you know, in a way, you kind of feel sorry and wish there was more you could do for people in other countries who aren't so fortunate.
Okay. What was it like growing up in Massachusetts for you?
I liked it. I mean, we always did like either family day trips or little vacations. We went camping and stuff like that. So, like you said, I like that, you have everything here. When I was growing up in Fairhaven, I would jump on my bike and just, ride to the beach and hang out with my friends and stuff like that. So, I really did enjoy Massachusetts overall. I mean, there's other nice places out there too, but I'm always going to be rooted back to Massachusetts.
Have you lived anywhere aside from Massachusetts?
Just military. I lived in Georgia, North Carolina, Alaska, upstate New York. So kind of bounced around saw a little bit. I visited a lot of places like Missouri, Wisconsin, California. So kind of they keep you busy on active duty.
What was it like living in Alaska?
Alaska was awesome. It's for someone who likes the outdoors. It's like heaven out there. We went like the best memories. We went whitewater rafting on the Denali River, and it was just fantastic. So it takes a little. I reported like 5 days before Christmas in 2005, and so it was just like pure darkness. It only gets light like 5 hours a day in Anchorage, so it was. Definitely took a while to adjust to that, and then in the dead of the summertime, it's light all day. It gets like dusk at around midnight, and then the sun comes right back up. So it's definitely different. But I enjoyed Alaska. Was probably my favorite place.
Okay. Well, I think that's all the time we have. Thank you very much.
No problem.